It's an emotional thing that even to watch, like to watch back was quite tough. But I suppose with that, it was about my childhood and my journey. And I was learning on the go, if you like, with the conversations with my mum and dad. So it was quite raw and emotional. And we shared that as a family, because I think if you can share a positive story around addiction and overcoming that, it's a positive thing, because so many families live with levels of addiction and mental health issues, and the relationships are broken and they find it very hard to repair them. And so carrying that as an adult is quite difficult. So it's like trying to learn to let go of the anger and resentment towards somebody. But yeah, you know, when you're a teenager living with someone with addiction and there's constant relapses, it's so heartbreaking, and you get so angry and you're so frustrated. But as an adult, I've become a lot more compassionate about my dad's addiction.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was received really well. People said, you know, it's opened up their heart a little bit, and now they're speaking to their mum or dad a bit more, and it's got them talking, which is the most important thing, I think.
Yeah, I thought one thing that was really interesting when I was watching it was, I think generationally, something that is worth noting is that kind of generation of your parents, my parents, perhaps weren't really well equipped with the language to talk about mental health in a way that, you know, in the last 10 years, we've seen such a push to talk about mental health with those around us. You know, we understand more things about like anxiety, depression, perhaps addiction a bit more. And actually what you see in this documentary, and especially with your mum, who just seems like the most magical woman and just so kind and so sweet, you see that actually a lot of the struggles was from even just being able to communicate about what they were going through. And you advocate a lot for mental health. Do you think that perhaps the language around it has changed, and that we can actually now start to have those conversations, and generationally we might be a bit quieter, if you know what I mean? Like they might have found it more difficult because of stigma.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a stigma, and also people would just sort of, you know, crack on, man up, you know, get on with it.
Yeah.
Or, you know, they're having a breakdown and you sort of thought, oh, it's just that time of the month, and you sort of make jokes about it and things. But at the end of the day, you know, mental health is something that affects, mental health is something that affects men and women at different stages of their life. And what I realised about my mum and dad's, you know, illness and addiction is that it stemmed from childhood trauma. So because they lived with certain things and experienced certain things, they didn't tell me, because, you know, as a parent, you want to protect your child and you want them to just have an easy, safe life. But really, it kind of backfired in a way, because it manifested in my mum's OCD, you know, real extreme, vigorous house cleaning every day of the week. And my dad obviously turned to drugs. And so I think from that experience, I've learned that you've got to talk, you've got to ask questions. And when you bring the children into the conversation, even if they're young, and you talk about it in a certain way, you can help ease the burden on them. Because when you're a kid, you think it's like your fault and you should be helping them, and you're a carer and you don't know what's going on. So I do think that bringing children into conversation and being open is so much more positive for everybody. You release that kind of pressure from your mind. You're not living with secrets and things. And I really think that was a positive part of like a positive message of the documentary was, you can talk about this as a family and you can overcome these things, and you can repair and build relationships rather than have destruction and resentment and anger. It can actually turn around, and that's what's happened with my family.
Yeah. Something that you see, or something that I find really interesting to reflect on with guests, is how the view from your sofa changed from a child. So if you think about when you were maybe 5 or 6, how your living room looked then versus how it looked now. And you grew up in a council estate in Epsom, and now you live in you know, a beautiful house in Surrey. Do you think, can we talk a little bit about that journey, you know, and perhaps reflect on, I don't know, I know at one point you said that people had told your mum that you and your brothers weren't ever going to like become anything, and you were going to become drug.
Yeah, there was definitely like this stigma around, you know, we were from a house that, you know, you're in a council estate and people probably knew my dad was a drug addict. You know, the police would be coming around now and again, and, you know, it was a very shouty, loud, chaotic house, you know, so amongst different personalities and characters in that kind of intense environment, I'd say we were like the wrong uns, if you like, you know, the family that were probably like up to no good, and, you know, beg, borrowing and stealing, you know, and I'd be knocking next door to borrow some sugar and some milk. That was the way it was back then, you know, but everyone looked out for each other. But I think, you know, people did expect us to follow in the footsteps of our mum and dad, like shouting, swearing, screaming, getting in trouble with the police, drugs and stuff. But I think it really frightened me, the thought of like doing drugs and trying that, because I thought I was going to become an addict if I just tried it once. So I was very frightened of it. And, you know, I think I'm really grateful for my experience. I always say, like, you know, my childhood shaped me. It gave me so much drive so much
Yeah.
ambition, so much passion, and so much empathy for other people. Like, I love knowing that I'm helping other people on with their mental health. From kids, with schools and PE with Joe to every single thing I do every day. It's about helping other people. So I really think my childhood formed that kind of that love and compassion and empathy that I've got. So again, it's like looking positive at difficult start of life. But I'm very grateful for, when I wake up in the house I live in, I can't believe I live in this house. Because, like I said, my bedroom really is like the size of my flat. So when I was a kid, I was living in this tiny flat. I'm always grateful, and I say to Rosie, and I'm so blessed that we've got a home where our children are safe, and that, even today I do this thing, and I talk about it in my book, called daily gratitude things, where I'm not someone who journals and writes things down, but I sent a WhatsApp message to my mum and dad, just saying, I'm really grateful that today, my kids are safe, that I've just had a hot shower, and that I've got sanitation, and that, I live in a home that is safe for my family. And so little things that I just remind myself, because with what's going on in the world, it makes you really think about that,
Yeah, and it's so easy to lose sight of the things that we should be incredibly grateful for. And I think especially, in the West, where consumerism is so big, we can lose sight of, or we always, the goalposts keep moving. We want more, we want a bigger house, and actually it's those things that, if you can have safety and if you can have love and things like that is what human happiness perhaps is, rather than goal orientated.
Definitely, I really agree with that. And I sent the message to my mum, dad, my brother, and Rosie, and I don't expect a list back, but often they'll send theirs back. And it anchors you in the moment. It's like it anchors me in today. Like, what am I grateful for? Because I've spent time, in countries where they don't have sanitation, they don't have hot water, and you think, like, imagine waking up today in the middle of December and it being freezing cold. And so I think when you acknowledge these things and you just put them out, then one of the things was, I'm really glad and grateful that my mum and dad are still alive and I can still meet them and spend time with them. And it really does make you feel grateful, and you sort of feel like you don't look so far ahead or behind or what's going on in the world. It just sort of brings you back to
the now.
Your moment and what you can control. And I think sometimes with social media and the way the media is moving, we're constantly looking outside, but really happiness is inside, isn't it?